In every institution, there are those who simply come to embody the values and mission. George Johnson is one of these leaders for Darlington.
Have you ever been in a room when someone walked in and all of a sudden a new energy was in the room that you couldn't define, but you knew it was special? Have you ever been with somebody who looked you in the eyes when they were talking to you so intently that you knew that you were the only thing that they were focused on at that moment? That is George Johnson.
He has that sparkle, that twinkle in his eye that you immediately see. And it's infectious, and you want to get to know George better the minute you meet him.
Well, the first thing I think about with George was what he told me maybe 40 years ago. One of the key things about being a good leader is stickability. And gosh, has George demonstrated that. He has helped thousands and thousands of kids through communities and schools, which he actually helped put together. He stuck with it.
George Johnson is an unusual trustee. One summer, he called me and he asked me if I knew the poem by Wallace Stevens, 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. And I said yes, and we teach it, and it's a difficult poem, but I said we do what we can with it. And he asked if I thought if the students could look at a visual expression based on the poem, if it would help them understand it. And I said, well, maybe. So he sent me down to look at an installation by a Georgia artist named Beverly Key, who had done a piece, 13 individual pieces based on the stanzas of that poem. So I went to look at it, and it was amazing. So I called George back. He said, do you think it would help your students if they could look at that? I said, it helped me, so it probably would help the students. He said, well, I think I want to buy it for you so they can use it. I said, okay. And the first time I took students up, they looked at the poem, then we looked at and they looked at the pieces and went, oh, and started to talk about it. And the discussion and the insights went places that I would have never imagined before. But that's how much he cares about the process of learning.
If George Johnson had not been central to the life of Darlington School for the last 15, 20 years, Darlington School would not be in a position to move into this next century in a way that is going to sustain and build upon an amazing future.
In my business of fundraising, the most important ingredient is really not the presence of really large donors or even how good the cause is. The most important secret ingredient is leadership. It's that leader that has their soul and their heart and their brains committed to the organization, to the cause, and that can get other people to believe as they do. George Johnson is really one of those rare leaders.
George Johnson leads the way all great leaders do, by example. In the 9 years that I've been working with George on the Second Century campaign, I have learned more about fundraising than in the 25 years that I've been in this business.
George, you're a hero of mine. You've come to see me in behalf of numerous charities, organizations. I can't think of anyone for whom I have more respect than you. You make fundraising fun. You make giving money away fun. You always lead with your own wallet.
You can't talk about George Johnson without using superlatives. In my business, we talk about top producer. We talk about best salesman. We talk about head cheerleader. George is all those things.
Plus, he's got this childlike enthusiasm that just charges him up on anything that he gets excited about.
George Johnson is simply the best fundraiser.
I got to tell you, working with George is a real experience. He's the ideal partner for any campaign fundraiser. He knows where the money is, he knows how to ask for it, and he's very persistent. You've not lived until you've been with George and have him tell somebody, go back to your closet, go back and get that old shoe and get the money that you stored and give it to Darlington. I assure you, I've been on both sides of that. I've been with George when he did it, and I've been with George when he told me that, and it is very effective.
I can't ever forget when George would say, Larry, I need to talk to you. And it took a number of years for me to understand just what that meant.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen George with that twinkle in his eye lean in.
George would lean forward, put his hand on my arm and say,
"Now what are you going to do for Darlington School?" In that great George Johnson voice.
He is a Southern gentleman. He is kind to the bone, and even though he went to the University of North Carolina and I went to Duke, I love George Johnson.
I don't think there's anybody who has that capacity more than George to just focus in like a laser on an issue and stay dedicated and devoted to it.
I admire so much your generosity to all the institutions that you care about, and I know that Darlington is at the top of that list.
From my perspective, he epitomizes everything that leadership is about. He's humble, he's caring, he puts himself way in the background, and yet he has a tenacity in terms of right and wrong and getting a job done like no one I've ever worked with.
He loves Darlington School, and Darlington School loves George Johnson.
And working with George is a heck of a lot of fun.